Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Nice to see that people are slowly joining. We're going to wait a minute or so just to wait for other participants to join. And then we kick it off. All right. Hope you can see my screen. Let us know if you are experiencing any technical issues. Thank you, Anna, for the confirmation. All right, I would say we slowly start. We have a packed agenda, so let's kick it off. So a warm welcome to all of you to our VVB session on agriculture requirements and methodologies, and a few rules before we start. Important to, as we usually do, is first of all the session is being recorded. The second rule is that this recording and the slides will be published after the session on our gold standard learning platform. We have the link here, so please be so kind to let us know in case you're experiencing any problems accessing the platform, because we are uploading all our material or our slides and on that platform. And the third rule is please put your questions in your Q&A box, or you also have the chance to raise your questions, raise your hands during the Q&A session, so whatever you prefer. So today's speakers for this VVB session is two of us. I'm very pleased to have my colleague Ashwin, who is Senior Manager at the Standard Team, and I'm going to be delivering as well the VVB session. I'm Giovanna Taponte, Manager at Oversight Team. So we're very pleased to be holding this session for you. And please, in case you have any questions, again, a quick reminder, post them in the chat and Q&A box, or you have the chance to raise your hands during the Q&A session. So the agenda for today is, first of all, we will have a deep dive into the new agriculture activity requirements, followed by the rule update, soil organic carbon, loss risk in rice cultivation, and then a quick and brief introduction to our newly published methodologies, in-situ capture and conversion of cattle enteric methane, and the microbial carbon dioxide mineralisation. So let's start with our first agenda topic, which is the deep dive into the agriculture activity requirements. And here I would like to invite my colleague Ashwin to give an introduction. Please, Ashwin.
Thank you,
Floor is yours.
Giovanna. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Ashwin, and as Giovanna said, Senior Manager working with the Standard Development and Methodologies team. Happy to discuss agriculture activity requirements in today's call. As you all know, the agriculture activity requirements was published in the end of last year on 22nd of December 2025, and is in force from immediately from publication, and can be applied within a 30 days window period, which essentially starts from 22nd January 2026. The scope essentially is to set rules for the agricultural activities, which basically includes soil organic carbon, livestock, sustainable rise through water regimes or any other means, and reducing methane there. And any other activities within croplands would be under the umbrella of agriculture activity requirements. So it defines what exactly are the broad scopes, boundaries within which these agricultural activities can be implemented, and equally important, what sort of methodologies are allowed to be developed within the scope of agriculture. It also very clearly establishes, Giovanna will go into the details of it, what are the key eligible activities and non-eligible activities. But before we jump into the technical details of agriculture activity requirements, just want to give you an understanding on why are we having this new agriculture activity requirements, because we have been using the land use and forestry for activity requirements for a long time now. So why this shift into a specific agriculture activity requirements now? Well, point one is that the LUF activity requirements was anyway required to be updated as per the standard revision protocol that we have at gold standard. So it anyway would have been updated by this time. But along with it, we also felt, and there were multiple feedback that we received from stakeholders as well, that it makes complete sense to have separate requirements for forestry and for agriculture requirements, because even though a lot of them are quite similar, there are certain nuances that these sectors will have to look at, be it at the methodology side or be it at implementation side. So it would be really helpful to help package these different sectors into different activity requirements. And this also helps in avoiding any confusion as far as what exactly is the eligible activities, ineligible activities, and how do they talk to one another. For example, if there's an agroforestry activity being implemented, what should be the way by which a soil organic carbon should be accounted for? Which activity requirement will be required to be applied in which condition, which case? In LUF, it was all essentially one single component, and there were chances of misinterpreting some of the clauses there. So now this gives very sector-specific guidance. And Gold Standard has been having this approach of having an aligned structure when it comes to the activities, which is aligned to IPCC land classification, like one for agriculture, one for forestry. We have one for wetlands, which incidentally covers both marine and freshwater ecosystems, blue carbon and freshwater ecosystems. And one is also being planned to be developed specifically for grasslands as well, which you may come across in Q3. There was also this question of having special considerations for requirements beyond gold standard. For example, when it comes to CORSIA requirements, which puts a cap on eligible credits from forestry activities if the host country is REDD plus ready. Whereas if a specific agriculture methodology is applied in the forestry activity, those could go beyond the cap in case of CORSIA. Similarly, for ICBCM, there were certain conditions on additionality and baseline, which might not be applicable for both forestry activities and agriculture activities. So it made sense to clearly demarcate them separately. And finally, in the long run, we might actually even go ahead and simplify the different activity requirements that we have at gold standard and move on to a more easy modular approach where different activity requirements will be plugged into an umbrella single activity requirement. So this bifurcation helps in moving into that direction as well. So that's the overarching view of why we are having this specific agriculture activity requirements now. And also to update you, we'll also be publishing the forestry activity requirements for public consultation in a month or so. So please do look out for the forestry activity requirements as well. So both of them together would essentially cover all the components within agriculture and forestry sectors. Thanks. Giovanna, may I request you to now probably take all through the details of the activity requirements?
Thank you so much, Ashwin. So there was a very nice introduction to the new agriculture activity requirements. So let me proceed with the transition rule that we have for now. So as Ashwin was mentioning, of course, I mean, the forestry activity requirements is on the pipeline, so will be published in a month or two, or put up for public consultation first. But for now, what we have is in place is that every single project on the LUF sector, whether it's a forestry project or agriculture project, is governed under the LUF activity requirement. So this was the previous scenario. Now, with introduction of the new agriculture activity requirements, the agriculture projects are not governed under this new document, right? However, we do have some exceptions. So as you know, we have in the new agriculture activity requirements, so this is a new element, we are having agroforestry projects. So this is the combination of the crop and soil and also the trees. So for these type of projects, we have the two main components. So the agricultural components, that would be the crop and soil, will be governed under the agriculture activity requirements. And if these projects are also having a forest component, so whether they need to go or conduct an uncertainty assessment using LUF parameters or conduct any forest or non-forest assessment, then the LUF annexures applies. And again, this is just for this transition period until we have the new forestry activity requirements. So this is now the case, how to go about it. So the next slide pretty much gives you an overview about the list of methodologies that fall under the agriculture activity requirements. As we previously and in numerous occasions we already mentioned and also made it public, we are aligning our methodologies with the Paris Agreement. So that means that we're reviewing all our methodologies and also the agriculture and forestry methodologies. So this slide pretty much gives you the overview about what is coming next and the timelines for the public consultation of these methodologies. So we are publishing making public those methodologies for public consultation in different batches. That's why you see here the reference of batches. And these new methodologies, the Paris-aligned methodologies, are coming in, and therefore these are a little bit the timelines for the public consultation. So far, we do have only two published Paris-aligned published methodologies, which are the two methodologies we are going to be briefly introducing at the end of this session. Well, let's take a look at the timelines for the implementation of the agriculture activity requirements. Important to mention is that any project coming in for agriculture project coming in or submitted for preliminary review on or after the 22nd of January 2026, they must follow the new agriculture activity requirements. Why this date? This is 30 days after the date of publication of this new agriculture activity requirements. The second scenario is for projects that have not been design certified yet, must transition from the LUF activity requirements to the agriculture activity requirements by their next renewal or at the latest by the 1st of January 2028. So whatever comes first. We do have a third scenario, which is for listed projects. So for listed projects, these are not required to do this transition from the LUF to the new agriculture activity requirements before design review. However, this is highly recommendable. Of course, if this is not visible, please keep in mind the deadline, which is the 1st of January 2028. This does not need to go beyond that deadline, the transition. Now, I would like to present briefly, not go into much detail here, but just the summary of the key changes from the LUF to the agriculture activity requirements. So first of all, we do have now clear defined requirements for agriculture projects, and this fall under the new agriculture activity requirements. These are a couple of examples you may encounter. What type of projects can be expected under this new agriculture activity requirements. Also a new change is also we have reviewed the additionality. So we have now 3 pathways for demonstration of additionality of the projects. Again, I'm not going to go into detail here. We're going to be discussing this into more detail in the next slides. In terms of the safeguarding principles, we do have 2 main requirements changes, let's say. First of all, we have removed the high conservation value approach. So we had it in the LUF activity requirements. Now it's not present in the agriculture activity requirements. and also the introduction of guardrails on water extraction. This is very important, especially for rice cultivation projects, may come very important. So this is something to keep monitoring throughout the project within the creating period. So this is a new element coming into this new agriculture activity requirements. Then in terms of deadlines, two important deadlines you need to keep in mind. So for retroactive projects, they shall submit requests for preliminary review within 1 year of the project start date. That's the first one. And the second one, very important, especially for VVBs, is that these projects needs to be validated with a positive opinion and needs to be completed in the first 5 years from the start date of the project. So this is very important to keep in mind. And last but not least, agroforestry eligibility. As mentioned before, we are introducing the agroforestry element into these new agriculture activity requirements. What do we mean? We mean the introduction of crops into existing agroforestry systems. And we do have a requirement here, important to keep in mind and to consider, that is that those agroforestry system, we need to demonstrate that, need to prove that the systems have been in place 10 years prior to the start date of the project. This is very important. We're going to be looking at that in more detail in the next slides. Now, just a couple of examples what to expect, what kind of projects can you expect under this new agriculture activity requirements. So projects, for instance, where we are enhancing the sock stocks, or projects on using the introduction of microbiological agents for mineralisation of carbon, or again, the agroforestry systems are also part of this or fall under the umbrella of the activity requirements, the agriculture activity requirements. Then, of course, the rice cultivation and any projects coming in. For instance, in terms of livestock management, we do have a couple of methodologies in the pipeline for this one. So all these project types, let's say, fall under this agriculture activity requirements. Please keep in mind there's some exceptions to the rule. So in case there are projects that are introducing biomass, and then this biomass is undergoing a industrial process, for instance, then in this particular case, this is not governed under the agriculture activity requirements. This would be governed under the engineer removals activity requirements. So please keep in mind, depending on the project scope and context, you would have to go for one or the other activity requirements. Now, a little bit on the definition on the project scale. So this is just a refresher. This is also something that has remained the same and it's not been changed with these new agriculture activity requirements. So we do still have the micro scale projects. These are projects where we have the land size limit of 500 hectares. And also the emissions that are now to be greater than 10,000 tons of carbon per emissions per year. For smallholders, we do have a land size limit, which is not more than 3 hectares. And of course, we need to prove also that the low income, as per host country regulations, this is also something to prove. And also that we also have an issuance capped at 16,000 tons of carbon emissions per year. And of course, we do have also the small scale projects, and this is the issuance here is up to 60,000 tons of carbon emissions per year. So again, has not been greatly changed in the new agriculture activity requirements. Now, in terms of land eligibility, the deforestation zero rule still applies. So for the eligible area, we need to demonstrate that this land has not been converted from forest to any kind of other land use in the 10 years prior to the start date. And now with the introduction of the agroforestry systems, so we also have requirements here. We need to keep in mind first that the agroforestry system also needs to be in place for at least 10 years prior to the project start date. Another important requirement is that the project developer needs to present an assessment report that shall be used to demonstrate that this conversion did not take place for at least 10 years prior to start date. And this same also needs to apply or to be demonstrated as part of the preliminary review. Now, a bit on the land title. This is not new to you, of course. I mean, this is also still part of the requirements. So we need to have documentation. A project developer needs to have the documentation in place to provide the rights, the land tenure rights for the duration of the crediting period. So there's a couple of examples, of course. So we need the proof of those legal land titles. And if you're working with smallholders, for instance, also a couple of examples that you can encounter is, for instance, when the project developers acts on behalf of other farmers, for instance, that we do need to have in place the signed agreements. And also with a very clear statement there whether they are transferring the carbon rights or not, and the rights to implement those project activities. So this needs to be very clear from the very beginning in the documentation that you're providing. So this needs to be cleared up before the project starts, right? Now, additionality. So this is, as mentioned before, we have three main pathways to demonstrate additionality of the project. So the first option is we do have the newly tool to prove for the demonstration of additionality, which is this link I provided here in the slide. So you may go for that option. So the option number 2, the project developer may also go for the positive list to demonstrate additionality. So this will depend on, first of all, you need to check the host country where the project is located. So now the requirement is to have the human development indicator below 0.55. In the LUF requirements was, if I recall correctly, 0.7. Then the next requirement is this, of course, any project activity must not be mandated by law or approved, of course, the non-enforcement. This is also very important to keep in mind, also as a requirement for the positive list. And the third requirement must meet one of those two mentioned here in the slide. So first, the introduction of 5 native crop species, or being a smallholder or microscale issuing under 16,000 tons of carbon emissions per year. So this is the requirements for the positive list in case the project developer goes for option 2. And for option 3, we have the activity penetration rate. So for this option, the project activity needs to be adopted by less than 5% of the farmers in the activity penetration assessment area. What do we mean by assessment area or this penetration assessment area? We do have a table in the agriculture activity requirements with the minimum requirements of that demarcated area. And this is important to keep in mind. So I invite you to take a look at that table. And another important requirement here we need to keep in mind is that before the project start date, and this happens for the option number 3, there is a temporal assessment or analysis that needs to be done with the most recent 5 years prior to the start date again, to the proposed project whether it comes in place, because a minimum of these 3 years of data within this 5-year prior to the start date needs to be assessed. The adoption of these activities. So this is for the option 3, the activity penetration date. Now, a couple of words on the riparian buffers. So here, as per the LUF activity requirements, we would have only a flat 15 meters buffer, riparian buffer. Now we do have a little bit more clarity on and also more precise requirements for the width and required buffers for the different water body types, also present in the agriculture activity requirements. And at this stage, talking about safeguarding, this is important to have on the ground and this is something to validate and also present correct evidence for that is first of all to ensure that the project is not using any the fertilizers, no pesticides, heavy machinery, or no commercial logging with those zones. And something also to remark here also, which is also part of the agriculture activity requirements, the runoffs is something that it's also important to keep in mind from the project area to other projects, or so this is also to other land areas. So this is also to keep in mind during the audits on the ground. So this last slide is just to give you a little bit of an overview about the crediting period and the retroactivity. So for this, the crediting period starts either with the start date of the project or 3 years prior to the date of the project design certification, as mentioned here. So whichever comes later. And the maximum period for the retroactive issuance is 3 years. So which starts either with the project start date or 3 years prior to the date of the project design certification. So this is just, and of course, the maximum period of the crediting period is 20 years, or this should be specifically defined in the methodology. All right. So, and here in terms of, this is something that's been already mentioned, but it's nice to also refresh again. So again, as Ashwin mentioned, so we will have the forestry activity requirements maybe coming in a month or so. And when this forestry activity requirements comes in, we will retire the LUF activity requirements. So you will have distinct or differentiated activity requirements for agriculture projects and for forestry projects, for instance. So, but until this forestry activity requirements comes in or is published, all the relevant annexures from the LUF activity requirements apply. We, of course, will keep you updated on this. Yes. Before we move forward with the next slide, I'd like to ask, we have a short interactivity we'd like to share with you. So if you can share, Anna.
Yes, Joanna, I think you have one last slide.
All right, thank you. Just bear with me. Yes, well, this one, of course, so these are the resources where you find information. We have the link here to the new agriculture activity requirements. You also have the FAQs. Please be so kind to revise those. And if you have any further questions, please be so kind to reach to us, to the help or the VVB at goldstandard.org. We can happy to answer any questions or queries that you may have. So again, we have prepared a short introduction, a short interactivity, just to check your knowledge in case you have the time to go through the new agriculture activity requirements. So just bear with us a minute.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, 1 second. This should be the slide, right? All right.
All right, there you go.
Can you see it in presentation mode? Because I'm not sure.
Yes, we can see your presentation
mode. I'm going to do it in a different way. I'm sorry. Okay. Here we go.
Okay, perfect. So this is the Menti, as we already tested from the previous quarter training. So this is the number you have to register. With this number, you register to this short quiz questions. Please be so kind to participate. This is anonymous. This is just an interaction. We want to see whether this has been a clear, if the information is clear to you. Please be so kind to register. If you're experiencing, so Anna is also pasting, I think, the link to the, exactly, the to the chat. You can scan also the QR code with your phone. So I see people are starting to register. Perfect, it's working.
Quite some people. Thanks. I'll go to the next slide. Yeah, go ahead, go for it. Oh, wait.
So yes, the first question is to you. What are the potential impacts if runoff from project field carries fertilizers or other agricultural chemicals into water bodies? So we have 3 options.
This is an open question, so you could just type your answer there.
Yes, please. Yes, so I start seeing the questions coming, the answers coming in. Of course, all the very good answers, and this is true. So to prevent, of course, leakage, pollution, water pollution, contamination. So you need to check that on the ground. Exactly. Very good responses. So yes, this is all true. So also the projects should also ensure that, as mentioned before, the runoffs is also something to keep in mind, that they don't occur from the activity at the time of the design certification. So this is the runoffs is something that, for instance, for projects, rice cultivation could be the case, because we're having irrigation, and also would have also the risk of having this runoff. So this is something to prevent and to also check on the ground. So yes, all these are good and very good answers. Thank you for answering. So we move forward to another one. Another question is, do agroforestry activities follow only the LUF activity requirements? Yes or no? So we'll wait for a couple of responses before we discuss. See coming in. Okay, maybe we release the answer. So what is the answer? Oh, of course. So most of you answered correctly. So the answer is no. Why? Because the stock pool of agroforestry systems for both forest and agriculture are to be governed under the agriculture activity requirements, but the forest component, let's say, from the agroforestry system will be governed under the annexures of the LUF activity requirements. So in this case, it would be a hybrid mode, let's say, for going with both activity requirements for this during this transition period, at least. Yeah. So thank you so much for that. And then the last question, I think this is the last one. So question is, can the minimum 3 years of activity penetration data be taken from any point within those 5-year period prior to the start date of the project? So remember, we were discussing this for doing the additionality pathways as one of the options we had. So just wondering about that. Okay, so answers are coming in. Yes, so yes, that's correct. So why is that? Because as we're saying, this is the option 3 of the additionality. So this is, so as we were discussing, there's a temporal analysis that can be done, then that has to be done before project start date, 5 years. Yes, so this is the at least 5 years, and this is a little bit to analyze or to assess if the project is really implementing a rare activity or not. So this is something, again, to be assessed prior to the start date, 5 years, 5 years prior to that. And we expect to have this temporal analysis of having or gathering 3 data points to conduct that assessment. And this is also part of the new agriculture activity requirement. So yes, thank you so much. You've done a great job. Thank you, Anna, for that. And I would like to now, so this is the end of the session for the agriculture activity requirements. So now I will ask my colleague Ashwin to move forward with the next agenda point.
Joanna, you have the Q&A now.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Q&A again. So let me share my screen again. Sorry for that. So bear with me a moment. Yes. Let me see. Exactly. So can see my screen? Yes. So yes, we do have now the Q&A session. I'm not sure whether we have questions on the chat or not. Let me check. So
I can jump in. We have one question
perfect.
on the
Thank you,
chat.
Ashwin.
Yeah. So I'll read out the question. The question is, does this application of new agriculture activity requirements apply to new VPA inclusion into already registered POA project? So the answer is yes. As per the activity requirements, if we look into section 1.3, I think 1.3.1 specifies that all new activities, irrespective of them being standalone or real case or regular VPAs, as and when they are listed after 30 days of publication, which essentially is on or after 22nd of January 2026, they will have to apply the agriculture activity requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you for the question. Very good question, by the way. Are there any other questions? Also, if you want to raise your hand, it's also possible. So let us know. Anything needs to be clarified, or was all clear? I don't see any hands raised or any more questions. All right. If this is the case, I mean, if you still have questions or the questions come in afterwards, please be so kind to post it in the chat. We will also make sure that these questions and answers are also published, so for your consideration. So I'd like to ask now then, if there are no any questions, my colleague Ashwin to move forward with the next agenda point. So floor is yours, Ashwin. Thank you.
Thanks, Giovanna. Before we jump in, I believe there is one more
There's
question.
one.
Yeah. So let me just read that out as well. That's on the chat, I think. I'll read out the question. If the new forestry activity requirements framework is introduced, agroforestry activities will still typically be considered as involving both agriculture and forestry activity requirements. Thanks for that question. So let me explain what Giovanna touched upon a few minutes back. This requirement essentially are for those activities which will apply the SOC, any soil organic carbon approved methodology within SOC within an agroforestry system, as what Giovanna was mentioning, where we have both agricultural activity and forestry activity within the same land. So if a specific earmarked soil organic carbon methodology is being applied to quantify the impacts on soil and the organic content there, then that specific component will be under agriculture activity requirements, whereas all the plantation part will be within the forestry activity requirements or LUF activity requirements. As of now, it's LUF, but once the forestry activity requirements are published, it will be within forestry activity requirements. As of now, there are many forestry activities which quantify soil organic carbon within the forestry methodology does not apply an earmarked agriculture methodology. In such cases, it will be completely within LUF requirements. So agriculture activity requirements will come into play only and only if there is a specific SOC methodology being applied to quantify soil organic carbon content within agroforestry systems. Having said that, if there also could be a scenario where there's only an associate activity within an agroforestry system. In such cases, of course, it will completely be agriculture activity requirements which will be applied, and where the eligibility condition of no deforestation or no conversion of the plantation from a natural forest into an agroforestry system within the last 10 years will also have to be checked. What that means is that, I mean, an agroforestry system can be developed from a natural forest in the last 5 years as well, or within the last 10 years as well, which is not allowed. So the agroforestry system should have been established at least for 10 years prior to the start date of the activity, even if there is a standalone SOC activity being considered within an agroforestry system. So that's how both agroforestry activity requirements or the the agriculture activity requirements or the forestry activity requirements will come into play based on the specific methodology being applied on the specific component within an agroforestry system. Thanks.
Thank you, Ashwin, for the detailed explanation. Are there any questions left or that you would like to make before we jump into the next agenda topic? Nope, I don't see any. So yes, please, Ashwin, go ahead then with the next agenda point. Thank you so much for your questions and your engagement. Thanks.
Thank you, Giovanna. Let me jump into the rule update. Just a second, please bear with me. Good. All right, so the a rule update on the RISE methodology was published quite recently. Sorry, I just hope the presentation is visible. I just wanted to confirm that.
Yes, Ashwin, it is.
All right, thanks. So it was published last year on 22nd of December, the same day when the agriculture activity requirements was also published. So this rule update pertains to the RISE methodology and specifically on the soil organic carbon component. As you know, the soil organic carbon content within an AWD system was considered to be insignificant in terms of the loss that would happen as long as an appropriate AWD measure is applied. The change, even if there would be any changes would be long term. And within the time period that we were looking at for AWD projects, it was considered to be not very significant if, as long as scientifically appropriate AWD system is in place. Having said that, concerns were raised by some key stakeholders that this could also lead to improper application of AWD system or other measures which would be required to ensure that the soil organic carbon content within rice field is either conserved, it's maintained, doesn't go down, or it's enhanced. Based on the feedback, we have released this rule update. Before we go into the technical aspects of it, the rule update is applicable to any monitoring period that will fall after 1st of July 2026, or before that, in case the project would require demand CCP labeling. As you probably know, the rice methodology has been approved by ICVCM for CCP labeling. So in case CCP labeling is a requirement, then this rule update would be required to be complied. Even if there is no CCP labeling required, all activities are required to have appropriate mechanism to ensure that the SOC component is safeguarded by on or after 1st of July 2026. So the VVBs have a clear role on this. We'll get into those details now. So well, I think I have explained what we have on this slide. The cutoff date is 1st of July 2026, and need not assess compliance retroactively before 1st of July, unless they need CCP labeling. That's the key thing that you may have to keep in mind. So what exactly is the requirement? The requirement essentially is that all SOC activities should establish maintain a scientifically appropriate management system practices that will either conserve or enhance the soil organic carbon component. Certain examples are provided in the rule update. They are not the only options available, and it's also not the case that all the 4 or 5 options in the rule update are to be followed. So what exact measures are to be applied depends on the geographical region, the edaphic factors, the agroecological zone where the project is being implemented, the nature of soil on the field, etc. That will decide what exactly are the various measures that could be considered to maintain the soil organic carbon content. Some of the examples there include crop residue incorporation, green manure, etc. But one key component that has to be considered would be optimizing AWD to ensure that there is no overdrying. What that essentially means is that as per the methodology, the water level cannot go beyond 15 centimeters of depth during the dry time. And that has to be maintained, but that 15 meters is the benchmark. Based on the soil condition, it could be 6 centimeter, it could be 10 centimeter in certain cases. So to what depth can the water be maintained during the dry time is completely depends on the area where the rice cultivation is being taken up, and that should be appropriate scientific foundation on deciding what that benchmark could be. So one question that the project developer will have to ascertain and will have to establish is the depth of water that they allow to go, and how it is maintained. And the other things, optimizing the AWD mechanism, in the sense the number of days when the field would be irrigated and the number of the days when water will be channeled out would also vary on the growing time of the pattern of the crop. So is there a wetting required during the flowering time? What about later on, how many days should the water be channeled out are again aspects that depends on the specific crop being taken up based on the growing cycles, etc., and also on the variety of the seed being considered there. So these components will have to be considered to optimize the AWD to ensure that there is no overdrying. And why no overdrying? When soil is exposed, there are chances of organic carbon content being emitted, lost from the fields. So essentially this is to prevent that component, and along with it, of course, other crop residues and green manure and other practices can be in place to ensure that there is no loss in soil organic carbon content. So in essence, this management practice will have to be established and will have to be demonstrated to be operational by the project developer to the VVB during the design certification stage and also during the verification stage. Uh, Direct SOC measurement is allowed. It's not mandatory. So there would be cases where the project developer would prefer also to establish that there has been no SOC loss from the field, not through just having an appropriate SOC management system in place, but also through very objective SOC measurements being taken from the field. That's absolutely allowed, but that's not mandated as per the rule update as of now. That's an optional requirement for the project developers to consider. But the advantage is having such numbers on the table makes it very unambiguous. It's very clear to anyone who looks at the data sheets that there has been no SOC loss. So that's, of course, I mean, a good practice, but not mandated. Yeah. Now, one of the key component is what are the implications if the SOC management practices are found to be not adequate or are found to be insufficient. So if the practices are not reported by the project developer or are deemed insufficient by the VVB during verification, a 100% reduction factor applies to the emission reductions. What that means is that if SOC management practices are not applied in field A within a large project area, then the 100% of the emission reductions that would have come from the field A during the monitoring period would be deducted. To be very clear, 100% reduction factor is not to be applied for the entire project area, but it's to be applied only to those fields where insufficient SOC management practices are found to be the case. Even if the SOC management practices are inadequate, project developers would still have an option to demonstrate that there has been no loss in the soil organic carbon content through measured data from the project field as well as from the baseline reference fields. That's an option that project developers could avail if there is no significant change, which basically means 5%. Then these deduction factor, the requirement to apply the deduction factor would be suspended. It will not be required, and the project would continue as per the design. The SOC, the comparison between the change in the soil organic carbon content from in the project field as to the baseline fields are to be conducted from the baseline reference fields. In the methodology, there's a requirement that the projects are required to keep aside reference fields for having baseline data sets on methane emissions from baseline fields. So they will have to establish that the baseline reference fields could be compared to pre-project scenario in case there is no data on the SOC content before the start of the activity from anywhere within the field, and use that to compare the SOC content within the project field. We also, just to add, that we have received certain questions from project developers who, for whatever the reason, have not established such baseline reference fields, and the suggestion is to reach out to the secretariat in such cases, where we are happy to examine all such cases, all such instances on a case-to-case basis on what could be the best option which could be considered in such cases. Granularity, I think I touched upon this, that the reductions are not applicable for the entire project, are to be applied only to those specific fields which can be ascertained where the adequate management practices on SOC management has not been implemented. Um, yeah. So what does this mean? What exactly? How is this rule update to be applied to the projects? For all new and listed activities, the specific requirement is mandated to be applied from 1st of July 2026, and those undergoing validation shall introduce these changes into the design for any design certification. What that essentially means is that for any specific design certification submitted on or after 1st of July 2026, these are mandated to be included within the design certification. And for verification, they are allowed without any doubt, I mean, to voluntarily update the requirements in the rule update, but would be again required to be reflected on the management practices or monitoring parameters from 1st of July 2026. The table here on your screen kind of gives three examples of what that may look like. So for any monitoring period on or beyond July, 1st of July this year, will be required to comply with these requirements. For those monitoring periods till 1st of July, may voluntarily update the requirements. But one may also remember that Paris alignment requirements also require all 2026 vintages to be issued only after being aligned to the Paris aligned methodology, which will be out in the coming months. So essentially what it means is that for any 2025 vintages, rule update is only voluntary, it's not mandatory. And going for all 2026 vintages, this rule update will be applicable as it may also be reflected in the Paris aligned methodology. So just to again capture these aspects, validation until 30th of June, it's a voluntary update, and post on or after 1st of July, it's a mandatory update. For 2025 vintages, voluntary update for CCP label, voluntary update or for CCP label, it will be mandatory. And the design change in the PDD that will be required because there are two additional monitoring parameters that are introduced in the next year to the rule update. One is on the SOC management practice, and the second one is on the yield. Yield, incidentally, was already part of the eligibility requirements of the methodology, which mandates that there should be no yield decrease. So yield is essentially a proxy to demonstrate that there has been no loss in soil nutrients or SOC. So that's anyway now introduced as a monitoring parameter to clearly demonstrate that there has been no loss in SOC. So these monitoring parameters will have to be added into the design changed PDD along with details of the monitoring system in place. And this can be done along with the performance certification cycle with no additional fees to be paid by the PD for the design change which will be required. For verifications for 2026 vintage and beyond, that will also be aligned to the Paris aligned methodology as I mentioned earlier. And along with it, just to not to, what should I say, confuse too many updates, agriculture AR updates that Giovanna mentioned earlier is voluntary till 1st of January 2028, but it could be updated along with the next certification cycle. But agriculture AR updates are not seen as something probably not too critical, but then again, it's up to the project developer to evaluate the updates that would be required there. Yeah, and for new projects, listing is allowed, and design certification in PA methodology version will be allowed in 2026 vintage. So this is just a snapshot of what we just discussed in the previous two slides. I don't think I'll go into details of the dates and the requirements here, but we are happy to to answer any questions now, or in case you have any further questions that you would like to be answered, please do reach out to us. Thank you. Any questions?
Ashwin, we do have one question in the chat. You can
I can
see
see it.
Yep.
I can say it. So I'll read it out. In AWD project, whether no loss of SOC should be proved through direct measure, remeasure approach, or modeling approach is allowed in such project to prove that there is no loss in SOC. So the rule update allows sensors and direct measurement using sampling to be allowed. It does not mention anything about modeling to be considered here, but this is something that we can explore in case we receive any query from the project developers, whether models could also be applied to look at what the SOC loss could be or could be not. But even for models to be applied when it comes to SOC, invariably there has to be some sort of samples which will be required at some stage. So it does not take away the requirement of having some data that could come from the field, which is the requirement as per the rule update. Thank you.
And we do have one more. I don't know if it's been addressed. So how does the project demonstrate that select conservation practices are scientifically established? Wanted clarity on what sources are acceptable, peer-reviewed papers, National Agriculture Guidelines, or the IPCC?
Thank you. Sorry, I think I missed that question. So yes, as an auditor, you could look into all acceptable sources and resources on what exactly would be the right approach as far as the AWD system is concerned to manage soil organic carbon content within that area. The thing is, more than the SOC content, it's about having an appropriate AWD system in place. So if it's an appropriate AWD system, as per the scientific literature, the loss of SOC is not going to happen, or it's going to be very insignificant. So the exact AWD system in practice will be based on again scientific literature is allowed, expert opinion is allowed from based on the project region. I'm not very sure about how granular IPCC or global reports might be in such cases. So the whole idea is to be sure that even though if there's a range, for example, on what the water depth could be, what exact range is to be considered within the project area. So if the threshold is not less than 15 centimeter, is that true for the project area or not? Or should the threshold be just 10 centimeter or 12 centimeter based on the soil texture or other edaphic features based on the agroecological zone where the project is situated. So I would rather suggest to encourage project developers to implement AWD in a proper scientific manner, and that will also help. If they, and they have to be recorded appropriately, and that will also help the VVBs to evaluate whether appropriate scientific elements are considered in the AWD design itself or not. Yeah, but then again, you can look into all the literature that is available. Could the 100% reduction rule discourage projects from reporting small complaints issues? Thanks. That's the materiality issue. So what exactly would be a small complaints issue is something that we will have to evaluate, but that's an excellent question, because the 100% reduction is a huge penalty, which we all understand and appreciate that project developers do have a risk in reporting any complaints issue, and there might be a lot more temptation in underreporting issues, because essentially the penalty is quite high. So there is a risk there of underreporting, and we will recommend that VVBs do study any such shortcomings during their field visit to the project site, and also evaluate using your own sectoral experience and expertise, as well as regional experience, whether the small complaints issues is actually material in nature or not. Project developers and as VVBC could always evaluate whether any, for example, if as per the plan they were supposed to add X kg of green manure, and for whatever be the reason, for one month the addition was only X minus 1 kg, would that really have a material impact? Is something that you could always evaluate and take a very subjective decision based on your expertise. I would rather say the key point here is when it comes to how how material is this specific compliance issue in terms of the risk to soil organic carbon being lost from the field or not? That's the key question that you may have to keep in your mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwin. I think that it was all clarified. Thank you for the great questions, by the way. Do we have more questions? I guess not. Please post the questions in the chat. We will be answering as we run the webinar. And so over to you, Ashwin, with the next agenda point. We will deep dive into the methodologies now. Brief
Thanks.
overview.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Giovanna. Just to clarify, it will not be a deep dive into the methodologies, but the whole idea would be to expose the auditors to the new methodologies, the Paris aligned methodologies that Giovanna mentioned at during the early during the slides on activity requirements. So we are very happy to introduce the two. Oh, what's happening? My slides are not moving. Okay, here we go. Introduce the two Paris-aligned methodologies from the loose sector, which have been approved to be applied on ground. The first methodology is the in-situ capture and conversion of cattle enteric methane. That's a very interesting methodology, was published in early November last year. And the second methodology is about soil inorganic carbon, microbial soil inorganic carbon, which was published in January this year. Interesting to note that one is about emission reduction of methane, reducing methane emission, and the second one is on inorganic carbon, which is slightly different from organic carbon. Just touching upon the key features of the methodology, and we are again happy to support all the auditors during the actual auditing process whenever you come across projects that apply these methodologies. So on in-situ capture and conversion of cattle enteric methane, you might know that we have three livestock methodologies within the gold standard ecosystem. One is the smallholder livestock methodology, which is undergoing a revision process as of now. And that's specifically an earmarked methodology for smallholders. The other two methodologies are one is the beef cattle methodology, and the other is a dairy cattle methodology. And both of them essentially capture reducing emissions from enteric fermentation through feed supplements. So there are certain feed supplements that will reduce methane emissions that are generated through enteric fermentation. So those two methodologies are also being updated. They probably might be combined into a single livestock methodology when it's Paris aligned. I think dairy cattle right now is kind of in the process of being updated. Beef cattle methodology is open to be applied on ground. And this is the fourth methodology within the livestock component. Well, I should not say the fourth methodology. We also have one methodology within the SOC group, which looks into pasture management. But anyway, just focusing on livestock. So what this methodology essentially does, as you can see on the picture here, is that it captures methane as it is emitted and in situ. So right on the site, it captures it and then it converts the methane into carbon dioxide or other gases. I mean, which reduces methane emission, but of course, I mean, that could be the other CO2 or other greenhouse gases which would be produced. But I mean, nevertheless, as you all know, the GWP of methane is quite higher as compared to CO2. And through this process, methane emission is reduced. So these are wearable devices on the head of the cattle, and we have been quite cognizant of the multiple issues that could be there. So it's a very interesting methodology. It's a very interesting concept, and just a overview of what the baseline emissions are, activity emissions are, etc. Just to be very clear, the baseline So these monitoring devices, they are designed to actually capture the amount of methane that will be captured by these devices, and how much of it will be converted or reduced. So in all these cases, baseline are actually quite dynamic or quite live, even though we have a specific provision to look at what the baseline herd size is and what has been the baseline emissions from the animals, etc. And also pasture management is also considered within the methodology to look into the emissions at the baseline as well as from the activity. This is one of those cases where calibration is required for devices within the agriculture sector. These are all quite detailed in the methodology, and upstream emissions and operational emissions, etc., are also to be counted as activity emissions. Uncertainty deductions are, of course, to be considered as per the standard practice, and there are certain measures to ensure animal welfare. So there are requirements that a specific inspection of the cattle are required annually to ensure that appropriate welfare measures are taken, even if these wearable devices are worn throughout the year, and these are to be recorded by the project developer. So that, in a nutshell, is what the methodology is about. And maybe I can take any questions together after I also go through the microbial carbon dioxide mineralization methodology. So this is the second methodology, which is Paris aligned, which was published on 21st of January this year. This methodology is applicable to cropland specifically, where a microbial inoculant would help in increase of soil inorganic carbon in the soil. As I mentioned, it has to be applied in an existing cropland. And this SIC is deemed to be far more durable as compared to SOC. But that does not mean that buffer requirements are different as of now. Buffer requirements are still 20% for both SOC and SIC as of now. It has a dynamic baseline, so something quite similar to the baselines and rice activities, where there are measurements to be taken from the field. So there are control plots where the microbial inoculant will not be applied. It's basically untreated baseline units, and the inorganic content within inorganic SIC content within the baseline untreated units would be quantified and compared against the project scenario. This methodology does not quantify soil organic carbon enhancement, to be very clear, and also looks into any conversion of existing SOC into SIC that also would be deducted. These are explained step by step, quite detailed in the methodology. Emissions include inoculant life cycle assessment, transportation, etc. So a lot of various elements that could lead to emissions are part of activity emissions. Any leakage owing to a shift in cultivation owing to a drop in yield, etc., would also be considered. Will have to be considered by the project developer. Yeah, I mean, uncertainty is naturally propagated across the baseline as well as for the activity data, and the accuracy required are right now as provided in the agriculture activity requirements. That's 1920. Also, just to add that this methodology is the first methodology that very clearly refers to the agriculture activity requirements. The one before, the In-situ device methodology for livestock, it still refers to the low factory requirements, since agriculture activity requirements was not published when the methodology was published. So this again is in a nutshell what the microbial carbon dioxide mineralization methodology is all about, and we are happy to take any questions on these two methodologies. But of course, I mean, we are here to support you if you prefer to take a deeper dive when you start working on those projects that apply these methodologies. I'll stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashwin. It was quite a lot of information already on the two methodologies, so it's almost like a deep dive. So any questions you may have on those two methodologies? I don't see any questions. I think it was quite clear, Ashwin. Thank you so much. Again, if you have any questions, you can still put those on the chat. We'll make sure they are answered. And okay, so if we don't have any questions, we will proceed with the wrap up. We have good 15 minutes, so we're quite good with the time, I guess. So wrap up as usual. So this is what to do next, what comes next. So first of all is how to complete this training. So as you know, in the VVB requirements, there is a requirement there where you have to complete examinations throughout the year. So this is your evidence now. So you have to go to the gold standard learning platform and move forward with the next steps. So if you go to the next slide, please, Ashwin. So yes, so once you're in the learning platform, you will see you have to log in with your credentials, of course, and click on the dashboard, which is this session, the agriculture requirements and methodologies, a deep dive. And here you will see what you have to do. So this is how to log in into the platform and into this session. So Ashwin, if you move forward with the next slide. And you have to complete, there's a knowledge check. So there's also a quiz there you have for your, so you have to do that quiz. And also please send your feedback. Also, there is a form. Also, it won't take you more than 5-10 minutes. So we really appreciate feedback because we can also improve our sessions and we really take into account those feedbacks. So these are the two action points following the session. So again, a knowledge check and the closure with the feedback form. Next slide, please. Yes, and as mentioned before at the beginning also of the session, so those slides, if you don't are also available on that on the learning platform. So please feel free to revise those, and we also have the links there you can access. So again, this is all to find in the learning platform. Now, why you should consider login and getting that training certificate is, as mentioned before, we have the VVB requirements. So this is why we keep track that the managers, auditors are taking part of these sessions, which I hope they are useful for you, and it helps us to keep up with the requirements to the gold standard in line with our VVB requirements. So this is the certificate you get for the completion of this training. Again, need to register on the platform and you get that training. So this is tracked and we can again track the attendance by doing so. Thank you. Next slide, please. Of course, all this is in the learning platform, all the material, the slides, everything, the quiz is also there. So if you could not attend the session, you'll find also the recording. So everything is there for your consideration. You can download that and revise that once again in the learning platform itself. And finally, again, the support. If you have still questions after the session or any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us, to the vb@goldstand.org. And I see she's posting here the learning platform course already link, and of course the recording will be available within the 24 hours on the platform. So yes, any questions, again, feel free to reach out to us. We really appreciate your participating in these sessions. I hope this was useful for you. And yes, happy to meet you next time during another next session. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.